I was born Morayo Adedoyin, the only daughter in a house that gleamed with wealth yet echoed with absence. Our home in Aliyol Estate, Ibadan, rose on a hill, marble floors reflecting the morning sun, glass windows catching the orange glare of dawn, while my father, absorbed in emails, measured love and achievement, and my mother moved like a quiet shadow, offering warmth only in gestures of distraction. That morning, Daddy's driver polished the black Mercedes like a mirror, and Mummy's heels clicked down the hallway, a rhythm that reminded me of their schedules, not their hearts. Excellence is in your blood. Remember who you are, Daddy said, eyes never leaving the screen, and I whispered, yes, sir, smiling politely, wishing someone would remember me, not just the image they expected. The car glided through Ibadan streets, past the bustling Makola markets, the laughter of children chasing red dust, until we arrived at Success Tutorial College. The manager, Mr. Ogunbayi, welcomed me warmly under the sun, unaware that my presence had already drawn the attention of the four, Bimp, Funmi, Teo, and Adebisi, girls who thrived on intimidation and cruelty. Whispers sharp as knives followed me, Funmi's voice cutting through the morning air. Omo daddy to N Wakar. Rich girl, and suddenly the hallways felt colder, each classroom smelling of chalk, ink, and disinfectant barely masking the tension. At lunch, I sat alone, rice cooling on my plate, while across from me, Funmi whispered, our queen doesn't eat public food, and laughter curled around me like smoke, twisting my stomach into knots. At home, when I tried to tell my mother, her distracted nod and the advice to focus on your studies sank my words into silence, and each morning became a battle. The four pushed me, called me names, planted a phone in my bag to humiliate me. And when I tried to defend myself, Mr. Ogunbayi told me to man up, as if courage were a switch to flip, while my parents' absence in matters of protection left me trembling and invisible. I recorded everything in my diary, each page a silent witness. The insults, the pranks, the stares, the shame. Thunder rolled in the distance as rain tapped my window, and I wrote, maybe tomorrow will be better. Ibadan girls are only tough on the surface, but the next day brought sharper cruelty. Drinks poured on me, false accusations whispered, dignity stripped under the watchful eyes of indifference. I observed, too, that cruelty often has roots. Bimp's father abused her mother, and perhaps the violence she witnessed forged her sharpness, her need for control. Each day, my body trembled, my voice shrank, and I became a shadow moving silently through the halls, diary hidden beneath my pillow, my only refuge. Pleas to my parents were met with words of expectation rather than protection. My father's sharp reminders that refusing to go to school meant failure, my mother nodding distractedly. Yet in the quiet of my room, I wrote feverishly, today was worse than yesterday. I am tired. I am small. But I will try again because no one else will fight for me, my pen becoming my voice when all others were silenced. The bullying escalated, drinks poured, cruel nicknames, whispered threats, public humiliation, while the four's older relatives tried and failed to intervene. But one fateful morning, my mother finally read my diary, tears streaking her face as she shook my father, and the depth of my suffering could no longer be ignored. Authorities were contacted, the manager arrested for negligence, the four taken into custody. In Ibadan, my story became a beacon. Schools implemented anti-bullying programs, teachers spoke about empathy, parents reconsidered the importance of presence over provision, and my silence, through written words, spoke louder than any insult or shout ever could. When the rain falls over the mango trees in the coaching center courtyard, people remember a girl named Morayo who endured, who observed, who survived, and whose quiet courage sparked change. Her story is a caution and a call to action. Protect the vulnerable, Listen to voices pleading in silence, and understand that even in tragedy, hope can transform a world into something kinder, gentler, and profoundly more human. The morning after the storm, I stood by my bedroom window, watching the rain-soaked streets of Ibadan glisten in the soft light, diary in hand, heart still pounding but steadier than before. Yesterday's humiliation had passed, but the lessons remained, and I felt something new, a quiet strength I had never known. I dressed carefully, arranging my books and tucking the diary into my bag, as if it were armor, each deliberate movement a rehearsal for the battles to come. Each breath a reminder that courage is not absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. Walking through the bustling streets, children splashed puddles, vendors called to one another, and the city whispered stories I had learned to read. The small gestures, the fleeting glances, each a clue, each a shield against those who would see me broken. Arriving at Success Tutorial College, the four waited, smirking, whispering, expecting the frightened girl they knew. But today I walked with my head high, observing them as much as they watched me, noting every twitch, every glance, every scheme, my pen already tracing their patterns in my mind. In class, I took careful notes, answered questions strategically, each correct answer a small victory, a silent rebellion that unsettled them, their whispers now tinged with frustration as I met cruelty with calm precision. The four escalated their attacks, water tipped onto my desk, whispers of lies spread to classmates. But I no longer flinched and subtle allies appeared. A janitor's knowing nod, a librarian offering extra materials, a classmate quietly lending encouragement, all forming an invisible network of support that steadied my resolve. My diary became a weapon and a map, each entry recording patterns, weaknesses, and subtle truths, guiding me through their schemes with patience and clarity. I began to understand that observation is power, endurance is strategy, and silence can unsettle those who rely on fear. After school, under a mango tree with sunlight breaking through lingering clouds, I reflected on my quiet victories, realizing that the strength growing within me was no longer fragile. It was patient, calculated, and resolute. The four, sensing frustration but unable to see the source, planned larger schemes, confident in their control. Yet I remained vigilant, using calm expressions, strategic silences, and sharp intellect to deflect their attempts and undermine their power without confrontation. Each day, courage multiplied. Allies became more visible, and the storm that had been solely theirs to wield began to turn. Public attempts at humiliation faltered. Subtle acts of defiance unmasked their cruelty, and classmates began to notice the girl who refused to break. In every whispered insult, in every shove, in every attempted prank, I observed, recorded, endured, and grew stronger, my diary capturing the evolution of my resolve. Patience, observation, and courage becoming my armor. By the time the sun set and rain began softly again, I understood that the quiet girl had begun to rise, not through anger or retaliation, but through a deliberate, measured, and unshakable strength that even the four could not foresee. A storm that was mine alone, patient, silent, and unstoppable, preparing for the day when truth would speak louder than fear. The day of reckoning dawned over Ibadan, golden lights spilling across rain-slicked streets and the coaching center, and I stood by my window, diary in hand, heart steady yet charged with purpose, no longer the frightened girl. I felt the quiet storm I had nurtured rising within me, patient, calculated, and ready. Dressing carefully, arranging my books, and tucking the diary into my bag, I walked through streets alive with the rhythm of life. Children laughing, vendors calling, puddles reflecting the sunlight, and I observed, noting subtle gestures of allies and enemies alike, each step deliberate, each glance a measure of courage. At Success Tutorial College, the four waited, confident in their expected dominance, smirking and whispering. Yet I walked past them with my head high, meeting their glances with calm precision, watching, recording, and preparing, knowing that knowledge is a weapon more potent than fear. In class, they struck first, attempting public humiliation with spilled water and scattered books, but I deflected gracefully, allies subtly intervening, teachers stepping forward, classmates lending quiet support, and the diary, my silent witness, revealing the patterns of cruelty to those in authority. Their plans unraveled before their eyes. Whispers of power dissolved into shock, disbelief, and frustration as the storm they intended for me returned to them, now guided by truth and patience rather than anger. Tears came as relief, not defeat, as I finally allowed myself to feel the weight of survival, the depth of endurance, and the first taste of justice, while my parents, teachers, and the community witnessed the full extent of the struggle they had ignored, understanding at last that courage cannot be bought. It is earned in silence, observation, and resilience. The coaching center began to change. Anti-bullying programs were implemented, empathy was taught, and voices once silenced learned they could be heard. My story became a beacon, a lesson, and a legacy as I walked through the streets of Ibadan at sunset, diary under my arm, reflecting on the journey that had transformed fear into power, silence into voice, and suffering into strength. By evening, as the city lights twinkled and soft wind brushed through the mango trees, I opened my diary one last time, writing that I had survived, risen, and been heard, and that even the smallest voice, armed with patience and courage, could alter the world. The quiet girl who had endured now stood tall, not in anger, but in serene triumph, leaving behind a story that would ripple through the city, teaching that truth, endurance, and quiet courage are forces no cruelty can conquer. Kindness is stronger than cruelty. Speak up, stand tall, and never let silence allow someone's pain to grow. No child should feel invisible. See them, hear them, and defend them. Bullying ends when we all refuse to look away.